That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carley, presented by Meijer. And today I'm joined for a second time by sports graphic designer Todd Radom. How's it going, Todd?
It's going really well. Thank you for having me back, Carly. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure. All right. So, for those of you who don't know, what are some things that you have done in the past, and what are some things that you're working on right now so we can fill everyone in?
So I am a graphic designer and brand guy. I've been working in professional sports for 30 years now. I have done everything from designing Super Bowl logos to work for the World Series, a lot of work across Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, on and on and on, big events, teams. I designed the Detroit Tigers season tickets for a couple of years ago. And right now, my work is involved in selling the book that we're going to be talking about.
Let's talk about your new book. It is called Fabric of the Game, and it really dissects each team in the NHL, their logo, their jerseys, their names. I was lucky enough to be able to skim through it. Thank you for that, by the way. Incredible stuff. Let's focus on some interesting jerseys in the book, but I'm going to give a little theme to this. So since we have Halloween right around the corner, let's go with the spooky theme. And first up, we have my favorite, the Vancouver V sweater and the very creepy goalie mask. So can you elaborate on that for us?
Oh my goodness, I'm terrified, Carly. What an image to live up with over here. This is Gary Bones Bromley, played in the NHL in the 70s, basically. And in this book, we tell the story of the Canucks' terrifying flying V uniforms that Bromley is wearing. We don't talk about the mask because the image speaks for itself. But these uniforms were the result of marketing focus groups, very rare back then, and the search for a very aggressive look. One last thing about these crazy uniforms, they were so radical that the patterns for the jerseys were made by a flag manufacturing company.
It's insane. You love it. I mean, you see it. And nowadays, the goalies get really creative with their helmets, but that is an insane kind of Friday the 13th vibe mask. And of course, we can't do a Halloween theme without mentioning the New Jersey Devils. Come on. Can you expound on that name? Where did it come from?
The New Jersey Devils. It's devilish, to say the least. And so the Devils, when they moved from Colorado, where there used to be the Colorado Rockies, not the MLB version, of course, they had a contest to name the team. And there were all kinds of names like Blades and Patriots and Meadowlanders and Jaguars. But the winning entry involved the legend of the Jersey Devil. Now listen, Carly, I lived in Jersey for a long time, and I know about this. It was described as kangaroo-like, with the face of a horse. I mean, talk about terrifying. It is attributed to a Mrs. Leeds, who in 1735 was expecting her 13th child. Note the 13th. And she said, "Let it be the devil." And so it was.
And so it was. And then also, speaking of Halloween and something that still stands to this day, the Philadelphia Flyers and their colors, who we know are orange and black. And I mean, come on, doesn't get more Halloween than that. Where did that color scheme come from, Todd?
I love the Flyers. Look, Carly, I have to say that, the Flyers hang right there with the original 6 franchises. It's a modern look. But the orange and black, interestingly enough, one of the members of their ownership group, back in 1967, when the Flyers came into existence, he went to the University of Texas. So we owe orange and black, not to candy corn, but to the Longhorns.
That's where the orange came from. I love it. And there are some interesting logos from the book, of course. But to play on that Halloween theme we're going with, what are some tricks and treats, you like that, in your book that fans can expect?
Wow. We have a lot to go with over here. I'm going to go, let's start out with some treats, because we all need some treats these days, right? We talk about the New York Americans. The New York Americans were a team that existed from 1925 to 42, so we cover the whole history of the NHL. They were the first NHL team in New York. They predated the Rangers by a year. And they had a number of great looks over their history, all stars and stripes. And Carly, I have to say, we did a lot of research for this book. The Red Wings are listed as red and white, of course. The Maple Leafs as blue and white. The New York Americans, their colors were officially stars and stripes.
Huh. Interesting. And what else is there for the tricks and treats?
Well, let's flip it around and let's talk about the Buffalo Sabres and when we went to their goat head uniforms in the 90s. So yeah, the Sabres next season are going back to their classic look. But there was a while where, of course, those of us who remember this, the Sabres wore red and black. In the book, we spoke with Seymour Knox IV. His father founded the Sabres. He told us about the process of rebranding the club in the 90s. And yeah, it was a little bit of a different look, but eventually, get back to basics, and the Sabres look like the Sabres again now, thankfully.
And speaking of the Red Wings, there's a legendary Red Wing we know in Gordie Howe. But we saw him in a familiar jersey, but not a Red Wings jersey. Can you talk about the Whalers?
Oh, absolutely, Carley. And, I have to say, Gordie Howe is one of those athletes who elevates the look of any team that he ever played with. But the Whalers are beloved. Us logo geeks, we love the Hartford Whalers. I mean, you look at that logo, it does a lot with a little, as I always say. It's got the whale fluke. It's got an H hidden right above the W. And I love the fact that Gordie Howe played in all 80 games, his final NHL season, at age 52. What an inspiration. And I love the fact that he got to play in one final All-Star game. It was at the Joe Louis Arena, and he looked great in the Whalers green and blue. What a classic look.
Yeah, as you said, he could make any jersey look good. Before I let you go, I have to get your opinion on this. Back in 2011, which is when I graduated high school, fun fact, for the NHL Awards, Stan Lee teamed up with the NHL for the Guardian Project, releasing a superhero for each NHL team. And here is the Red Wing. Can we take a look at that? What do you think of this, Todd?
Carley, I have to be honest with you. I had totally forgotten about this. 2011, I mean, it's like a long time ago, considering the pace at which our lives are going right now, of course. But it was part of the Guardian Project. The thing bombed. I mean, it absolutely went over like a lead balloon. But the Red Wing was supposedly had all the power of a Formula One race and an F-14 fighter jet. It was the ultimate winged wheel. It had retractable wings. And Carley, I looked up a couple of these other Guardian logos or mascots, and I love the fact that, by the way, the maple leaf, he tossed maple syrup sap bombs at his enemies.
And we cannot talk about your book and logos and jerseys without speaking about the Detroit Red Wings. One image in particular I love is Ted Lindsay, seen here. Can you talk about his jersey?
Yeah, Carley. I mean, listen, the Red Wings, one of the classic looks in hockey, of course, all of sports. And the Red Wings today look like the Red Wings of the 1930s. But I love the fact that during the World War II era, the Wings wore the winged wheel crest, of course, but on either sleeve, they had World War II messaging. On the one sleeve, there's a patch advertising war bonds. On the other sleeve, you can barely make it out, but it is Morse code. 3 dots and a dash, which meant V for victory.
Wow. How interesting. I love getting the history behind where we got to where we are now. Speaking of which, the Detroit Red Wings, as we know, weren't always the Red Wings. They started off as the Cougars and then went to the Falcons. But Todd, there's an interesting reason possibly behind why they went from the Cougars to the Falcons. Can you expound on that?
Oh, Carley, this is one of my favorite things in the book. When the Victoria, out in Western Canada, Cougars essentially moved to Detroit, became the Detroit Cougars in the 1920s, people in Michigan apparently could not pronounce the word Cougars because they are indigenous to Western Canada, and this was a problem. And we found newspaper documentation, like many examples of this. So they had a contest to rename the team. They became the Falcons, and of course now the Red Wings, which just seems right, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I love it. The Red Wings sound better. I could say Cougars, but I do like the Red Wings better. Todd, thank you so much for joining me again on Catching Up with Carley, presented by Meijer. And fans, do not forget to pick up Todd's book. It is incredible. You won't want to put it down. Fabric of the Game. You can get it on fabricofthegamebook.com or at your local bookstore beginning November 3rd.
Carley, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. It's always my pleasure. Back to you, Daniela.